While numerous dishes can excite your taste buds after being cooked over intense flames, only a handful can compare to the timeless appeal of a succulent grilled steak. However, for those who are new to cooking or lack culinary experience, the idea of grilling steak might not only be perplexing, but also somewhat daunting. So, how can you achieve the ideal grilled steak and consistently succeed with it? First things first, choose your cut. Every seasoned chef understands that the minimally utilized muscles found along the backbone in the loin area possess fewer connective tissues, resulting in more tender outcomes compared to the vigorously worked muscles in the leg. Furthermore, they're skilled at identifying steaks abundant in marbling, the fat interspersed between muscle fibers, which serves as an indicator of superior meat quality. From a flavor perspective, the distinctions between various cuts of steak primarily revolve around their fat content, particularly the quantity of marbling and the makeup of the fatty acid components within the fat molecules. Premium selections, like ribeye, exhibit greater marbling and are also enriched with oleic acid, a particularly delectable fatty acid. This divergence in fatty acid composition also influences a significant choice that consumers face when purchasing a steak, opting for grain-fed or grass-fed beef. Cattle raised on a grain-fed regimen, spending their final months in feedlots consuming a diet rich in corn and soybeans, yield meat that boasts higher levels of oleic acid. Conversely, animals that graze on pasture throughout their lives possess a higher proportion of omega-3 fatty acids, polyunsaturated fats that break down into smaller compounds with distinct fishy and gamey flavors. All in all, the biggest influence on the final flavor of that steak, though, is how you cook it. So, how do you grill the perfect steak? Mastering the art of grilling a flawless steak involves a clever technique, establishing two distinct heat zones on your grill. On one side, you'll generate intense, scorching heat with a high flame, while the other side remains unlit, maintaining a cooler temperature. Begin by searing the steaks on the hot side, achieving a delectable golden brown crust with those coveted grill marks. Subsequently, transfer them to the cooler side to complete the cooking process until the desired level of doneness is achieved throughout. This approach yields a sizzling exterior that brims with flavor and an interior that is succulent and velvety in texture. Hey, you know what? Steaks on the grill with sweet corn on the side? This is the kickoff to summer that you've been waiting for. Step number 1. Make the steak seasoning. Start the process by crafting your very own steak seasoning blend. Believe me, this homemade variant surpasses any pre-mixed concoction residing in your pantry by leaps and bounds. Begin assembling the ingredients: rock salt, whole black peppercorns, minced dried garlic, minced dried onion, fennel seeds, and red chili pepper flakes. Combine these elements in a mortar and proceed to grind them using the pestle. If a mortar and pestle aren't at your disposal, fret not. Instead, introduce the components into a robust Ziploc bag, ensuring to expel all air before sealing. Then, proceed to crush the mixture using a metal mallet, rolling pin, or a sturdy, heavy-bottomed skillet. Step 2. Make the herb butter. Moving forward, proceed to create the herb butter. Begin by placing softened salted butter brought to room temperature into a bowl. To this, incorporate finely minced rosemary and thyme, chopped parsley, minced garlic, and a substantial pinch of the homemade steak seasoning. It's also worth noting that this final addition is what truly elevates the butter's flavor profile. Stir the ingredients together until well combined. Then, take the butter mixture and shape it into a log by placing it onto a sheet of plastic wrap. Afterward, refrigerate the log until it solidifies. Allowing it to rest overnight is highly recommended, or if time is limited, you can opt to freeze it for approximately 20 to 30 minutes to expedite the process. Step 3. Prep the steaks. For this particular recipe, we'll opt for 1 pound of bone-in strip steaks, sliced to a thickness of 1.5 inches. However, feel free to select your preferred steak cut. Ribeyes in particular offer a delightful option. Begin by thoroughly patting the steaks dry using a paper towel. Following this, drizzle a modest quantity of vegetable oil onto both sides of the steaks and proceed to rub them with a substantial pinch of the steak seasoning. Don't hesitate to be generous with the seasoning either. Remember, this recipe involves a considerable amount of meat. Now, let's jump into the most interesting part of the recipe. Step 4. Grill the steaks. But before that, hit that subscribe button and like the video because you don't want to be left out of the loop. As previously mentioned, achieving the ideal balance of sizzling, caramelized exteriors and succulent, buttery interiors involves a two-step process. Begin by searing the steaks over a scorching intense flame and subsequently transfer them to a cooler unlit section of the grill to finalize the cooking process, utilizing indirect heat. Here's a breakdown of this method. Begin by activating 1/2 to 2/3 of the burners on your grill at a high setting. If your grill features 2 burners, ignite 1. For those with 3 burners, ignite 2. You get the idea. Allow the grill to preheat for a minimum of 10 minutes, or until it attains a temperature of 500 degrees Fahrenheit. In the case of a charcoal grill, proceed by heating the coals until they're intensely hot, then shift them to one side of the grill. Place the steaks onto the illuminated section of the grill, ensuring they come onto contact with direct heat. Proceed to sear each side of the steaks for approximately 1.5 minutes, making adjustments as necessary if your steaks vary in thickness from the specified 1 to 1.5 inches. Subsequently, transfer the steaks to the unlit portion of the grill, shifting to indirect heat, and persist in cooking until they attain your desired level of doneness. As a reference, for my steaks that were 1 to 1.5 inches thick, achieving a medium level of doneness took approximately 7 minutes of continued cooking. And here's a nice little tip since you've stayed to this point of the video. You deserve it. Keep the lid down when you're searing and cooking so you don't lose all the heat you've worked to build up. Now, I know you're wondering, are these instructions the same for cooking other meats? Well, the answer is a definitive no on that one. Various meats require different durations and temperatures for cooking, and each type of meat possesses its own specific density and thickness. Moreover, when dealing with whole cuts, there's no need to achieve the same elevated temperatures as is the case with ground meats and poultry. Lastly, how do you know the level of doneness? Whether your preference leans toward a steak bleeding on the plate, or dry as a bone, or as leathery as a shoe, a steak doneness guide should help you out. Here's an example. The typical benchmark favored by chefs is medium rare, offering a balance where the steak isn't excessively bloody, but retains its tenderness and juiciness. When executed skillfully, the steak can even achieve a melt-in-the-mouth quality. With experience, you'll develop the ability to gauge the level of doneness solely by touch. Keep in mind that the cooking time for each steak varies due to differences in cut thickness. Be wary of following anything that tells you the cooking time rather than the temperature. And there you have it, grill masters and culinary adventurers. Are you ready to take your grilling game to the next level and conquer that mouth-watering tender steak every single time? Well, now you're armed with the ultimate steak grilling wisdom to turn your backyard into a flavor-packed paradise.